Hello and welcome into episode 117 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris. Solo episode this time. And, we got a few things to talk about, mostly basketball and some football stuff. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Always got to get that out of the way. And then be sure to follow the College Huddle. The other Big 12 podcasts are great, and it's a good podcast group to be a part of. A lot of good stuff coming out from that. So I'm actually going to start with women's basketball today. ASU parted ways with women's basketball coach Natasha Adair. Jeff Metcalf reports it. And this was an obvious choice. I haven't talked much women's basketball this year on this channel, and it's because there hasn't been a lot to talk about that's good. This is from Jeff Metcalf, former Republic ASU reporter. ASU is making a coaching change, replacing Adair after 3 seasons, 2 seasons left on the contract. 29-62 combined record, 10-22 this year. So, and he lists some replacements: Molly Miller at GCU, Lindy LaRoque, UNLV, Breon January, Nikki Blue. All of those make sense. This was an obvious choice. I think hiring any of those candidates as the next women's basketball coach makes sense. It is an obvious choice to get rid of Natasha Adair. It just didn't work out. 29-62 speaks for itself. I wish her the best moving forward. Segueing off of that, though, it doesn't seem like the men's basketball coaching situation is quite as cut and dry. Men's basketball, 13-17 this year. I believe the last time I recorded, either it was before or after the BYU game, but either way, they lose to BYU 91-81 in a pretty solid effort, but wasn't enough. Lose at Utah, kept up for a bit, but then Utah pulled away 99-73. And they play, again, they play a decent game at U of A, but they, you give up 113 points, it's over. So 3-game losing skid. They play Texas Tech in Tempe tonight. I am recording this on Saturday the 8th in what I hope is Bobby Hurley's last home game as Sun Devil head coach. It's not trending quite that way. It doesn't look like. It seems like his status is very up in the air because there, maybe there's just not the money to, or maybe, I don't know. I think returning him is a bad idea, and I don't think it's worth it. I don't think the only benefit is you probably keep Jaden Quaintance, and that is a benefit. That would be the silver lining. I just don't know if that's worth it to keep Bobby, because I don't know. I feel like this season has just been so clear that he's not the guy. There have been other seasons where there just hasn't been the talent. And so, or there's, overshadowed by COVID, or when he started out at ASU, they were still they're just rebuilding the program after Sendex. So there's been reasons to excuse subpar play under the Hurley era in the past. I just don't see it this year. I don't see it. They're 13-17. There's been a lot of, there was a PHNX show, and I always recommend listening to PHNX Sun Devils, but I disagreed with the premise, and it was why it's not all Hurley's fault. Well, no one's saying it's all his fault. Basically, every ASU fan understands that Hurley is not 100% of the reason why this program isn't good, but it's not like he plays zero role in that, right? I don't know. I just think the idea of returning him is very unappealing to me. This is a clean break. You go 13-17. I just don't know why I just don't know why like I'm supposed to be excited for the next season. So, but the reason why it doesn't feel like a certainty is because um, there have just been some. I don't have access to Sun Devil Source or Devil's Digest, but I could just tell by looking at the comments surrounding the pieces. You have Michelle Gardner in the Arizona Republic advocate for Bobby Hurley to come back. It doesn't feel like it is a done deal that he will be gone, even though I don't know, even though it probably should. So maybe they're looking for money because getting rid of him, I believe it would be. I'm gonna look up his contract buyout, but it wouldn't be like super cheap. But in ASU, I think all these teams with the house settlement coming up, they know that they'll have to spend $20 million, and so they're maybe being a little bit more frugal than they would have been in the past. Okay, so this is the AI overview. Let's take that with a grain of salt. Hurley's contract extension with ASU includes a $2 million buyout if he were to leave before June 30th. Okay, so that's not. Hurley's on contracts. Basically, I mean, it's a decent amount of money, but it's not. It is not. It's not like super prohibitive. I don't know. Like, I probably should have looked this up before recording, but the point remains. Like, I just don't think this should be an obstacle that you deal with. Not in the sense that, like, obviously it is an obstacle that you're going to have to deal with, but okay, here we go. The deal increased annual compensation. This was signed in last year. Increased Hurley's annual compensation to $2.8 million. The extension granted Hurley. Should ASU terminate the contract without cause, it would owe Hurley. So yeah, it would owe him like a bit over $3 million, which isn't nothing, but I think they should be able to absorb that like, I think that's an investment they should be willing to make, but it doesn't seem so cut and dry. And who knows, like maybe, I don't know, maybe two horrible performances to close out the year. If they get blown out by Texas Tech in this game tonight, then maybe that changes things. If they get blown out in the Big 12 tournament, maybe that changes things. What I don't want is like if ASU wins 2 games in the Big 12 tournament and maybe looks frisky, but then it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything in terms of the tournament. Like, I don't know. Like, that shouldn't be enough. So I guess I'm just kind of venting. I just don't like this idea of bringing him back. And I mean, I'm not alone in the fan base. Like, it's. I just think people have seen enough. I don't think it's like unfair that he would potentially get let go. So I did see at coaching changes on Twitter, college basketball account. This is a rumor amongst rumors. This is not a report. This is a rumor. I just found it was interesting. There was a certain fan base that a certain non-ASU fan base that was kind of upset about it. So I'm sharing on the screen now. Coaching changes. This is on March 6th. We are told that ASU is well underway in their search to replace Bobby Hurley. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see. One surprising name gets more and more unsurprising every time I think about it. And then it's a bunch of Creighton fans, Creighton Blue Jays fans that are like, oh, hopefully it's not McDermott. Or they're saying, oh, it's not going to be McDermott. And then you have a few other fan bases. I see a Temple fan being like, oh, bring us Hurley. So, like, again, that speaks to my total point about Hurley. Like, it's not that he's some horrible, worthless coach, because he would get an opportunity somewhere else, right? That's what I always have said. And I think Temple would actually be a pretty good fit. for him. So we'll see. It's something to monitor. I hope. I guess like whatever. I'll leave it with like one stat that I saw. Let me. This is great. Great presentation. Just me scrolling my Twitter. Okay, this is on March 5th. Evan Miyakawa, college basketball data analysis, data analytics. Less than 2 weeks from Selection Sunday, here is my current predicted efficiency landscape in college basketball from evanmia.com, split into tiers. There's a big gap between the high profile best teams and the rest of the country. So title favorites, Auburn, Duke, Houston are like way above everyone else. Then it goes to Final Four potential, hit or miss, which is mid teams. Happy to be here, which caption is just make the tourney, then we'll see. And then the rest. And ASU is in the bottom quadrant of team offensive rating and team defensive rating, right? So, like, what are we doing? Like, I'll say this. If we bring Bobby back, the only reason should be money. The only reason. There is no non-financial reason to retain him. And I honestly, I think retaining him would be the first blight on the Rossini era at ASU, because everything, he hasn't even been here for a full year yet. So you can't, he hasn't made these hires. I just think this is such a clear time to move on. So we'll see how it plays out. I wonder if I wonder how much impact the next 2 games truly have, and apparently Koa Pete is still considering ASU as well. So that's another, factor in this, but I don't think it should be. So we'll see. We shall see. Go Devils. Go Devils, right? I'm going to switch over to football in a bit. Wanted to touch on hockey. They clinch. Just stay on my Twitter feed. Okay. So because of different results in the NCHC tournament, ASU hockey clinches the 2nd seed in the NCHC tournament. And that's important because based on the pairwise, which is the hockey ranking system, metrics, they're probably going to have to make it to the NCHC tournament championship game to have a clear spot in the NCAA tournament. So this is from Devil's Digest. With Omaha losing against North Dakota after entering the game 6 points ahead of ASU in the NCHC, Sun Devils will secure the 2nd seed, and they host. No, I did not mean to click on Caitlin Clark Twitter. Jeez, they host. They host Minnesota Duluth. Best of 3 next weekend at Mold Arena, 14th through 16th. That's going to be a great spot. That's going to be an awesome environment. Hopefully they only need 2 games, right? That would be ideal. You just beat Minnesota Duluth twice, get some revenge on the underwhelming series you had against them up in Duluth. So it's annoying that ASU hockey isn't kind of securely in the NCAA tournament. They probably should. I don't know. I'm biased. I guess they haven't totally finished the season out great, but they have an opportunity to make it. Well, they have an opportunity to win the whole tournament and just advance into the NCAA tournament that way, which would be freaking awesome. Or they have an opportunity to make some hay in the tournament and better their at-large positioning. So, I mean, it's might be a bit hyperbolic, but like this is maybe the biggest weekend in ASU hockey history. They've made the NCAA tournament before, but I feel like if they do well in this tournament, then they will like carry that momentum into the NCAA tournament. I don't have any good reason to think that, but I feel like if they get in, then they're going to be an issue. So. ASU baseball, horrible weekend against Minnesota, losing 2 out of 3, and the game you do win was you almost gave up the lead in that game. You win 8-7. So big win over UNLV in, big win over UNLV on Tuesday of last week. That really did kind of, I don't know, just get you out of a bad stretch. I mean, losing 2 out of 3 to Minnesota is bad. So 10-4 overall, could be worse, I guess, based on how they've played in some of these series, right? Like they've had some one-run wins, and I mean 11-1 win over Gonzaga last night. That's good. I don't know. It's the 2 out of 3 to Minnesota is just sticking with me, man. They should be 11-3 right now. I'm okay with I'm okay with 1 loss to Oral Roberts, but the 2 to Minnesota is just bad, and they had the lead in the first one too. So, they're 10-4. It does feel like this team is just kind of a better version of the other Willie teams in that they have good hitting. Starting pitching has been decent, but the bullpen is just untrustworthy. And so I think they're 10-4. They're not a disaster. They're not doing terrible, but I think they'll make it. I think they're on a pace to make the tournament, but not impressively. I don't think they're going to. I don't think this team's going to win the Big 12. So, 10-4. I can't be too upset, but just keep taking care of business against Gonzaga and kind of round into form as you go on the road to Fort Worth next weekend. That should be the intermediate goals. So not the end of the world, but still just underwhelming, I would say, with baseball. All right, back to football. So I have a few short-term football stuff to talk about before something big that broke over the week. Not really anything newsworthy, but I really loved the weight room squat videos that ASU football was producing. They came out on Friday, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the stream. It's just all of the guys led by Sam Levitt too, right in the middle. Well, not led by, but he's prominently up front. All the guys swaying back and forth, cheering on CJ Fight as he's squatting. I believe one was of Jason Brown, and the filming of it's really cool. They have an overhead shot. And the other thing is you can just tell how this team is connected, man. That's what really pops out when you're watching these videos. It is as if they're one amorphous unit in how they're all supporting each other as teammates, and everyone is locked in. Everyone is in the zone. It just feels like an awesome place to be, and it just looks like, just based off these videos. And again, that's not everything, but just great vibes heading into spring ball. Just it feels like everyone is on the same page. The ball is rolling downhill, and what you hope as an ASU fan, it's like a snowball. It just keeps collecting momentum, and these guys just keep getting better and better and better. And if they can, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but if they can if they truly found something in November of last year, right? If you go from the K-State game on, I can include the Texas game, or you can go K-State game on into the Big 12 championship, that kind of month stretch. Just that was the best ASU football has played probably in my time as a student. They had a great stretch, I believe, in the 2013 season, but that was before my time at ASU. But I was there the last good Todd Graham season was my freshman year. They never had a stretch like that. They had some decent stretches with Jaden Daniels, but nothing like that. And so anyway, you just seeing this energy in the weight room is a good like natural transition off how you ended the season, and hopefully it speaks to them even improving from where they were before. So I had to touch on that. It was just a really cool thing to see, just how locked in this program is right now. And then also on Friday, schedule update. We know the order of ASU's schedule. We did not know exactly if they were all going to be on Saturdays. It turns out they will not all be on Saturdays. 2 of ASU's 7 home games are moved to Friday nights. One was expected Friday, November 28th. They host U of A in the Territorial Cup. I like ASU hosting U of A on a Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. They've done it a lot. It just kind of feels right, And it's not like it that's what a lot of teams do. A lot of teams play on Friday night. So that's fine. No real issue there. I saw a few people get a little more annoyed than they should about ASU hosting TCU on Friday, September 26th. I don't understand, like, because it conflicts with high school football, and it's not the most ideal situation, but and I'm counting this as one Friday night game, one conventional Friday night game, I should say, because the one against U of A is over Thanksgiving break. One conventional Friday night home game is not bad. And this is a kind of a beef I have with some of our fan base. A lot of people say online, oh, like we need to have more day games. First of all, you can't do that for like the first half of the season. So just understand that. And they complain. It's like, oh, well, like I can't. It's like when I go to games at night, it's usually a better atmosphere and it's usually more full, So that's just kind of it. Like I just don't get why it's so bad to have night games. That's not even what I'm arguing. But one Friday night game is not the end of the world. It's fine. You have whatever, like 6 months to plan ahead for it. So the student crowd will be awesome. And ASU will have had 2 day games, likely, like the Mississippi State game and the Baylor game. Those are both on the road. I doubt maybe one of them will be net, but like I doubt those games will be weirdly timed because they're going to be in Central Time Zone no matter what, first of all. So you have that. And this will be the first Power 5 home game, conference home game of the season, right? This isn't, I forget who they open with, but they have Texas State after that. It isn't FCS opponent. I think it's NAU and Texas State, right? That's not what it is. So I'm fine with it. We've been honestly, like, we could have gotten screwed a lot worse. So having one Friday night game, really not that bad. So that's where I stand on that. I think that people just need to, I don't know. Maybe I'm just arguing with like a vocal minority of fans, but I've heard it before for a few years, and I just don't agree with this idea that it's bad to have a Friday night game. So that's my thoughts on that. All right, one more news item. Although I am skipping over that. This was a tweet from Ross Dellinger. I want to touch on this before. This was earlier in the week. Oh yeah, I mean Scatterboo Combine stuff. I mean that's all old news now. There's the story about him jumping on the golf cart. That's just so clearly just someone trying to capitalize off his fame right now. And I don't totally blame them, but that's just what it is. You got Scat's vertical jump. Okay, where is the Ross? Okay, so this is February 27th. Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger basically reports that Big 12 presidents reviewed bids from private equity firms. I don't like this at all. It's short-sighted at best, and this is one of the fears I have of Brett Yormark is just this dude. There's just a smarminess element to him and a short-term gain to make headlines mindset that can blow up in your face. And I don't think Brett Yormark will stick around to deal with the full implications of potentially going to private equity, which I think is a bad idea. So, and I don't think it's the difference in luring Clemson and FSU in the end either. So they're just reviewing it. It might be a moot point, honestly, because if the Big Ten and SEC do it, then you kind of have to do it as the Big 12. So I just don't like where it's at. I don't like that it's even being considered, and I think it's a risky idea. But I'll dive into it more if it becomes more of a story. I guess I don't want to focus too much on potentially private equity when it may not even materialize into much. So, all right, from March 4th this week, I believe that is Tuesday. Today's the 8th, Friday the 7th. Yeah, Tuesday. I'm so bad at that. Anyway, Andrea Adelson of ESPN, ACC reporter, or I guess not officially ACC reporter, but covers the ACC. And the kind of FSU Clemson suing the ACC that got resolved earlier this week, and she has some interesting details on that settlement. This is from her Twitter account on Tuesday. More details emerging from the settlement between ACC, FSU, and Clemson via sources. Exit fee is expected to drop by $18 million each year. So it's a lot right now, but it's going to drop by $18 million each year up until 2029 to 2030. After that, exit fee drops to $75 million, and any exiting team will retain its media rights. So basically, that tweet implies the ACC has like 5 years left, as the currently constituted ACC is going to have 5 years left, because then at that point, Clemson, FSU, North Carolina, and potentially Miami, and any other teams that are desired, can just leave with paying $75 million, and that's it. So why I bring this up, how does this relate to ASU, right? This ASU is in the ACC. The reason that this relates to ASU in two ways. I think that the 2025-2030 range, I think this is when you kind of get the formation of the Super League or the Super Leagues. And there's been some rumors of Big Ten and SEC trying to potentially chopping off their lower tier members, right? So that's something to consider in this as well. This 5-year stretch is important for ASU football, and I mean only football. The basketball, whatever, like it can continue to mire and below mediocrity, and it probably won't have any material effect on this. ASU football, it doesn't need to be like competing for, like, it doesn't need to be, 11 wins a year this entire stretch, but it just needs to have a Utah-esque of the late 2010s, right? Like the Kyle or Utah of like the last 8 years, right? It's just a good, solid stretch. You materially upgrade your program. Instead of being a mid-tier program, you move into where like Oklahoma State was with Gundy, or what Kansas State has been, where you kind of just level up into a good, but maybe you become a great program, right? Maybe you do fully prove Kenny Dillingham's like wishes of becoming the next blue blood. That's a long way to go, but I think Kenny has that mindset of, let's try to improve this program and get it to where like winning 10 games is not some crazy out of the blue scenario, right? You just continue to level up as a program, because then once 2029, 2030 comes around, you look way better as an expansion candidate for the Big Ten, or who knows, maybe even the SEC. And if you do move up, you're more ready to compete. You're just a much more solid program. Now, granted, if they were playing in like the Big Ten this year, I think they could do pretty well if they got the right schedule. But maybe they won't have a team from a roster standpoint as good as they will. Maybe the 2025 team is better than any other team they'll have in that stretch. But if they just add on to it, right? Like if they continue to just be like what they were last year, maybe you're a little worse, a little better given per year. But again, like a Kansas State level, you have the metro market behind you. Maybe, you're not totally like a blue blood, like you don't have like the giant alumni support like other schools, but in terms of engaged alumni, but you can still you'll just be a much better candidate to move up if you pair just the giant brand of ASU, just the students, everything that comes with that. ASU is a huge school, and really good football success, and then you can just it'll just be a much more seamless and obvious fit to the Big Ten. I think a school like Texas Tech is kind of in the same general area with that, where they have something to sell, and they have like I feel like Texas Tech will be able to potentially compete more than even some like current good schools in the Big 12. So like being a large public school and pairing that with a consistent run of football is something ASU needs to focus on in these next 5 years so they don't get left behind. And if the Super League doesn't happen, then this probably means that teams from the ACC will come to the Big 12. So if ASU does manage to stay in the Big 12 or gets stuck staying in the Big 12, however you want to view it, there's potential possibilities for, like a Pitt and a Louisville to come. That was mentioned on the Yahoo Sports college football podcast. Pat Forty brought up Pitt and Louisville, and those feel like Big 12 fits. So I doubt it would be just those two. You'd probably have like Virginia Tech and NC State and maybe someone else, Georgia Tech, whatever. So that's one of the two options, right? And if maybe ASU does things right and they're still not wanted, that's a possibility as well. But either way, like I think 20, 29, 30 is like, okay, that needs to be the goal of like when this happens, you need to put yourself in the best position to potentially join whatever best league it is, or just continue. Maybe you're just, you don't get moved up and you just stay in the Big 12, but then you continue to just build as the best Big 12 team. So either way, it's the mindset and the approach you want to have. Obviously easier said than done to just be consistently good at football. It takes a ton of work and buy-in and some luck to go your way, but I like where the program's headed. So we'll see. And hopefully I think they're going to have a pretty big recruiting weekend coming up soon. So we'll see how that develops as the spring continues. All right. Thank you for watching and listening on YouTube. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils.